Quorum call.
We are.
Mr. President, I ask that the quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I come to the floor today to urge the Senate to take action on election security legislation immediately. It has been 1,005 days since Russia attacked our elections in 2016, and we have yet to pass any kind of comprehensive election security reform. The next major elections are just 378 days away, so the clock is ticking. We must take action now to secure our elections from foreign threats. So let's review what happened here. In 2016, Russia invaded our democracy. They didn't use bombs, jets, or tanks. Instead, they spent years planning a cyber mission to undermine the foundation of our democratic system. This mission has been called sweeping and systematic by many, including Special Counsel Mueller. Our military and intelligence officials, as Special Counsel Mueller made clear, from both Democratic and Republican administrations have confirmed over and over again that Russia launched a sophisticated and targeted cyber attack that was authorized by President Putin. This includes, by the way, former Director Coates, who was President Trump's intelligence head. It includes Director Wray, the head of the FBI. It includes the head of Homeland Security. One by one, officials with the Trump administration have in fact confirmed that this has happened. So what exactly did Russia do? Well, they conducted research and reconnaissance against election networks in every single state. We used to think it was just 21 states, but this year the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, under the Trump administration, issued a report that confirms that all 50 states were targeted. Russia was successful in hacking into databases in Illinois. The Chicago Board of Elections reported that names, addresses, birth dates, and other sensitive information on thousands of registered voters was exposed. Russia launched cyber attacks against U.S. companies that made the software we use to vote, and they tried to hack into the email of local officials. Local officials that had elections in their purview. Investigations are ongoing, but we know that Russia hacked into election systems in the presiding officer's home state of Florida. And Senator Rubio has publicly confirmed that Russian hackers not only accessed voting systems in Florida, but were in a position to change voter rolls. And these are just the attacks on our election infrastructure. So we should look at it this way. One, they tried to get into the infrastructure. Two, what we know they did was spread propaganda about things. And one of the main ways they did it was with social media. This month, the Senate Intelligence Committee released a bipartisan report detailing Russia's widespread social media campaign to spread disinformation and divide our country. So remember, you kind of have hacking into things at the local levels and at the state levels, and then you have this disinformation campaign. Two things, both with the same intent, to interfere in our democracy. Think about what I just described. A foreign country attacked our democracy in multiple ways. Our military leaders and law enforcement officials all say that Russia hasn't paid a sufficient price for the attack, so they are now emboldened, in the words of former Director Dan Coates and former Republican senator, and continuing their efforts to undermine our political system. And Congress hasn't passed a law, aside from providing election equipment funding with no strings attached, to address the problem. This isn't just wrong, this is legislative malpractice. We have a common set of facts about what happened. Now we need common sense solutions to make sure it doesn't happen again. This week, a number of us are coming to the floor to urge the Republican leader to bring election security legislation to a vote. That must happen, but much more must happen as well. Today, I'm going to focus on the need to improve transparency and accountability for online platforms like Facebook and Twitter. But before I turn to that, I would like to take a moment to describe why it is imperative that we update our election infrastructure. Right now, the majority of states rely on electronic voting systems that are at least 10 years old. In 2020, voters in 8 states will cast their ballots on machines with no paper trail, so there's no reliable record to go back and audit the election results. So if something goes wrong, if they hacked in, there'll be no paper ballots to back up what really happened. Problem for that state or that county? Yeah. But how about problem for a national presidential election? And by the way, am I telling any secrets here? No. Russia knows exactly what those states are and what those counties are that don't have backup paper ballot. 16 states have no statewide audit requirement to confirm the results of the election. These statistics are alarming because experts agree that paper ballots and audits are the baseline of what we need to secure our election systems. FBI Director Wray recently testified in the Senate. I asked him whether he thinks having things like paper ballots make sense in the event that Russia, or any other foreign country for that matter, decides to go at us again. He said yes, that would be a good thing. Maybe we should think of listening to the head of the FBI and figure out what we could do to make this better. Even the president has expressed his support for paper ballots. But I think we need more than words. I think we need action. I think we need this body saying to those states, it is time to get your act together now and get those backup paper ballots. I have introduced multiple pieces of legislation, some of them bipartisan, that would secure our elections by requiring paper ballots, mandating post-election audits, and modernizing our election infrastructure. Despite one of those bills, the Secure Election Act, being co-sponsored with my colleague, Senator Langford, and also co-sponsored by the head of the Intelligence Committee, Senator Burr, as well as Senator Warner, the ranking member, as well as Senator Graham, who is in fact the chair of the Judiciary Committee, and Senator Harris, who's also been a co-sponsor. In spite of all of these leaders being on this bill was blocked last year. It was blocked by Senator McConnell, who made calls to Republican senators, as well as the White House, where the general counsel made calls to Republican senators to ask them not to support the bill. This is wrong, and I am glad that my colleagues like Senator Wyden and Durbin will be coming to the floor this week, urging the Senate to take up bills I have introduced, like the SAFE Act and the Election Security Act, that would modernize our election infrastructure. Remember, Russia didn't just try to hack into our election system. They also launched an extended and sophisticated information war designed to divide our country and destroy America's confidence in our political system. Russia also knew that our social media platforms would be easily exploited for that purpose. And this is a bill that I'm going to ask for unanimous consent on, a bipartisan bill that I lead along with Senator Graham, the chair, Republican chair of the Judiciary Committee, also co-sponsored by Senator Warner, the ranking leader on the Intelligence Committee. So why are we doing this bill about the social media platforms? Well, the place that Russia was most successful in undermining our democracy was right on your Facebook page, right there in front of you. Now, we know that some of the brightest minds in our country built remarkable platforms where people can share information, like Twitter, like Google, like Facebook. Unfortunately, these platforms failed to build adequate protections against the bad guys, kind of like building a bank, but not putting any locks on the doors. And our democracy is worse because of it. Our social media platforms are not well regulated. In fact, they're hardly regulated at all, and ripe for exploitation. Countries like Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China are taking advantage of that as we speak. The Senate Intelligence Committee, led by Chairman Burr and Vice Chairman Warner, recently released its second report on Russian interference in the 2016 election. This wasn't a partisan report. No one could call it that at all. While the first report details attacks and threats to election infrastructure, this second report details the sophisticated disinformation campaign Russia used to pit Americans against each other, and the committee found that Russia's targeting of the 2016 U.S. presidential election was, quote, part of a broader, sophisticated, and ongoing information warfare campaign designed to sow discord in American politics and society. The report notes that Russia conducted, quote, a vastly more complex and strategic assault on the United States than was initially understood, end quote. So what did they do? Okay, they hired trolls. They hired buildings full of people to go online and pretend to be Americans and then submit things and buy ads that ended up on your Facebook pages and your Twitter feed. Russia specifically focused on hot-button issues and used falsified stories and memes to foster distrust of our democratic institution. So maybe they would target a conservative person and put up a bunch of things that would make that person mad, but they were fake. Maybe they would target a liberal person and they would put up a bunch of ads about rallies and about things like that were actually fake. They targeted African Americans more than any other group through individual posts, location targeting, Facebook pages, Instagram accounts, and Twitter. Their internet research agency focused on stoking divisions around race. One of my best examples was an ad. They bought it in rubles. Facebook let them buy it in rubles. And it was an ad that we didn't even see until months after the election. And it had an innocent woman's face on it. Why do I know? Because she called our office later when it came out in Judiciary. She was just a woman. They found her face, African-American woman. They put it on the ad. And the ad said this: why wait in line on election day? You can text your vote for Hillary Clinton. And they gave the text number. That's a lie. It's more than a lie, it's a crime. They are trying to suppress people's votes and make them not go vote and instead text in to a fake number. That's a crime. People have gone over to jail for simply jamming the lines on election day. That's what this is. It's a high-tech version of a crime. So why was no one prosecuted? Because we didn't even know the ad existed that was targeted to African-American Facebook pages in swing states till way after the election. That's why. And you could do the same thing on the conservative side of the aisle. That's why I am simply asking for some solutions. Because one time it's going to be one side, and the next time it will be the other. Why would the people in this chamber let this go on? Why would we do that? We have sworn, taken an oath, an obligation to stand up for our country. That's what this is about. So it continues. Intelligence officials are once again sounding the alarm that adversaries are using social media to undermine the upcoming elections. Just yesterday, Facebook announced that it removed a network of Russian-backed accounts posing as locals weighing in on political issues in swing states. It never ends. Russia has a playbook that they are using it to attack us. We have to stop them. So how do we do this? Well, I have a very good solution. It's not the only solution. There's a lot of other bills we can do too, but it's called the Honest Ads Act that I am leading with Senator Graham. The goal is simple, and I want to thank Senator Warner for all the work he did on this bill as well. The goal is simple: bring our laws into the 21st century to ensure that voters know who is paying to influence our political system. Right now, the political ads that are sold on TV and radio and newspapers are disclosed so that the public knows what they are. They're actually kept either in an archive so campaigns and reporters can go over and see what they are. And they can actually figure out, what is this ad? Why was somebody putting this ad against me? I believe in sort of the competitiveness of our election system. And if you disclose things, then you're going to get more information about what's wrong with those things. The ads also have to say who paid for them. That's why you see those little disclaimers at the bottom, or you see elected officials saying, or their challengers saying, paid for this ad. My name is this, I paid for this ad. That's what that is. Well, guess what? If those things go on radio or TV or newspaper, you have to follow all those rules. If they end up on Facebook or Twitter or another large social media platform, there are no rules in place. Sure, those companies, a few of them right now, are voluntary disclosing it, but there's no actual rules in place about how it should be done. When I asked them why they wouldn't favor the bill, they've since changed their mind, some of them, and do favor it. But when I asked them at the beginning, they said they couldn't figure out what an issue of federal legislative importance is. That's what the standard is. So it's about candidate ads and these bad issue ads that you see on TV that bug you all the time. Well, I asked them why they couldn't do it. They said they couldn't figure out what that was. And I said, really? My radio station in Thief River Falls, Minnesota can figure it out. And these are some of the biggest companies in the world. Please tell me you don't have the expertise to figure that out. So that is why it is important that we pass this bill. It's about issue ads, and it's also about candidate ads. And all it does, as we look at where the money's going to go in advertising, last 2016 presidential, $1.4 billion was spent online on these kinds of ads. It's supposed to go to $3 to $4 billion. $3 to $4 billion in 2020. And there are no rules of the road. It is not only unfair, it is criminal if this continues. And it's so easy to do. This is something we could fix right away. This is why John McCain led this bill with me. And when we introduced it, he said this: I have long fought to increase transparency and end the corrupting influence of special interests in political campaigns. And I am confident the Honest Ads Act will modernize existing law to safeguard the integrity of our election system. This Congress, as I mentioned, Senator Graham took his place. It is time to get this done. There are many other bills that I'll come back and discuss in the next few weeks, which would help on foreign influence in our elections. But today, I want to focus on this one, because election security is national security, and it's well past time that we take action. The American people should expect nothing less from us. We should be able to get this done. Therefore, I ask unanimous consent that the Rules Committee be discharged from further consideration of S. 1356 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President.
The Senate Majority Whip.
Mr. President, there are some members who object to this, who can't be here to object on their own behalf. I object on their behalf, and I would just say to the senator from Minnesota that, like her, I also want to do everything we can to ensure that our elections are fair and transparent in this country. And I think there are a number of solutions, as she pointed out, that are out there. And I think that there is a lot of good work that's being done, will continue to be done, hopefully on a bipartisan basis. And as as a former chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee, have worked with the senator from Minnesota on a number of issues where we've been able to fashion solutions that are bipartisan in nature. And so I suspect that the work on this will continue. But as I mentioned, we have a couple of members on our side who do have objections, at least to the bill in its current form, or at least in the process of trying to do it this way. But I do think there's a way in which we can come together and work toward solutions that will help do what I think all of us have as an objective, and that is to keep our election process in this country fair and transparent.
Mr. President.
Objections heard.
Okay, Mr. President, appreciate the words of my colleague from South Dakota. Point out the Honest Ads Act is a bipartisan bill, with the other co-sponsor being the Republican chair of the Judiciary Committee, and I think we should be focused on election security instead of protecting these social media companies. I think we should be protecting the American people. We need to be a united front and I appreciate his words, and I look forward to working with him to get this bill to the floor. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.